Hello BookTube, hello everyone watching, it's Paul here, and today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Under the Skin by Michel Faber. Again, this was a book that was recommended to me by Jason Obley's Chapter and Verse, and it was a great recommendation too. I've now finished the book and I would have no hesitation in giving it 5 stars. Really good read. I had to really put some thought though into how I was going to go about making this video, because the unfortunate thing about making a video around this book is I think it would be a very easy book to spoil, to throw in giveaways on the plot, and I just don't want to do that, so I'm going to be extremely careful. Because one thing I would say is that this is a book that I would recommend going into blind. If you know nothing about the plot, I think it's all for the better, because even knowing what's going to happen in the first couple of chapters would kind of spoil it somewhat. When I was searching for this book, I couldn't quite remember the title, and I did a search on my phone online, and it came up with a brief few lines about the plot, and I wish that I hadn't read that, because it didn't spoil the whole book, not by any means, but it did. I did find myself, as I was working through the initial chapters, wishing that I hadn't read that little plot summary. So go into this one blind if you possibly can, that's my recommendation. So to talk around this book, I suppose one of the first things I would say is Michel Faber is absolutely brilliant at making you care about the characters. He really is. He does such a fantastic job of that. I mean, the main character in the story, which I was pronouncing as Overy, was her name. I really cared about that character, despite the fact that she'd done some pretty awful things. And it kind of made me wonder why. Why do I care about this character that has done such terrible things in her time? And I don't know, maybe it was the vulnerability, maybe it was the fact that in many different ways she had suffered a lot and was a victim herself. That made me care about her despite some of the things that she was involved with. So I think that's it. But it's so essential for me, if I don't care about the characters, then the book's lost, it's finished. And the other thing on characters with this book is that there's many characters that float into the book and then float out again, so you meet a variety of different people along the course of the story. And despite the fact that some of these characters are only given maybe 3 or 4 pages at the most, you learn enough about them to care about them and to care about what happens to them. And I thought that was very clever of the author to achieve that, and he does it in a very clever way. So yeah, and I think as well, as I was reading through this book, it really reinforced something to me, something that I want from a writer. I mean, there's many things that I would want from a writer in a book, if you have a good plot, that's great. If it's well written so it feels like a really comfortable read, that's important to me. good characters that you care about and are made to care about. That's also important. But I think for me the number one most important thing for me is I want to go on an emotional roller coaster, and I want it to be intense, and I want the writer to mess with my emotions as much as possible. And I'm not sure I completely realised that until I read this book. So that was quite an interesting realisation that I came to, and of course I think it's the mark of an incredible writer that can take you on that emotional journey, and so that was really something. And I suppose on the emotional side of things, I don't know if people use this term anymore to genre wise, but I would describe this as a tragedy. Maybe that's a word that's normally used for plays and things, I'm not sure, but I would describe this book as a tragedy. And that's okay, you know, there's... I like tragedy for some reason, and that's something I've been thinking about recently, is I've been kind of questioning myself, you know, why do I like tragic stories? Why am I attracted to tragedy in books, whether it's fiction or non-fiction? Doesn't make... I suppose I am quite a melancholy person, but I think it's I think the reason that I like tragedy is because it really shines a spotlight on what it is to be human. And it shines a spotlight on how people, ordinary people, vulnerable people, can still find reserves of courage and find a way to press on and move forward, how they can find reserves of resourcefulness. And that to me is endlessly fascinating, because at the end of the day life is tough, we all have our challenges, large or small, and to read examples of how people handle tragedy, I think is, like I said, you know, from a psychological point of view, it's fascinating. So yeah, that was also quite a realisation for me. I understand myself a little bit more now in that respect, I guess. So something else this book does that jumped out at me, it really highlights how we as human beings treat other living things on our planet, how we treat the animal world, how we treat each other for that matter. And this book mirrors that kind of behaviour back at you in a very clever way, and it really made me think, you know, I'm not there yet, but there's definitely the vegetarian in me, and I just I hate seeing cruelty in any form, whether it's cruelty we show to each other or cruelty to the animal world. But this book really it really made me think a little bit more deeply on that subject. The location of this book, luckily for me, this book is set about 40 miles away on one of the main artery roads in Scotland called the A9, and it's a road that I've used very often. And you know, I know in the last video or the video before that I made a joke about you know, not hitchhiking in Scotland because it was a bad idea, which is, you know, you'll understand if and when you read this, or if you've read it already you'll understand that. But, you know, on a serious note, it's so nice, you know, maybe you've had this experience yourself. you've read a book and you find yourself in the location where that book's set, and the book just comes alive again. You know, you're, in this case, driving down the road and I could see a hitchhiker, and this book is going to come back in a very vivid way in my imagination. And I think that's great, you know, because one of the wonderful things about books is they stay there, especially the good ones. The story stays there in your mind, it lingers in the background. And if you're lucky enough to stay in a location where the book's set, it can really just spark that into life again. That story comes alive in your mind and it's so nice. And even though it's a made up story at the end of the day, or in this case I sincerely hope it's made up, it's, you know, it's just a really nice thing. And so yeah, so that's kind of my feelings, thoughts and feelings on Under the Skin. Really great book. Highly recommend this to anyone. And I'd be very interested to hear from anyone that's read this book and seen the movie, which stars Scarlett Johansson, I believe. I'd be very interested to hear your thoughts on how the book and the movie compare, and if you think it was well done. I'll try and check the movie out at some stage, but I can't see it being as good as the book, not judging by the trailer anyway. But if you're going to read the book, don't watch that movie trailer. You know, don't spoil this book in any way for yourself. Go into it blind. So that, anyway, that's Under the Skin. And what I wanted to do as well in this video, just very briefly, is show you a book that I've got here that I plan to kind of make into a mini kind of side project for myself in 2019. This is a book, the book that I'm about to show you has been sitting on my shelf now for about 10 years and it's hardly been opened. And when you see it you may understand why, because it is a big old book. But it's this, and it's the Times Complete History of the World. This is going to be a fascinating read, but I was never motivated enough to read the whole thing in a oneer. I've read the odd page here and there, but I just wasn't motivated to read the whole thing in its entirety. And I was flicking through it the other day and realised there was actually 365 pages in the book, and I thought, right, there's the answer. You know, I'm going to read it gradually over the course of the year, maybe a couple of pages at a time, a couple of pages a day, and I anticipate finishing this around about August, September time. Because I think, you know, quite obviously it's a massive book that, you know, it's going to take time to digest, and I think it deserves to be read carefully and slowly, and I think it's definitely necessary to give myself time to digest the information in here. I often wish I could remember everything I read. That would be a real gift, but you know, I anticipate that it's going to give me an interesting new perspective on the world, and I've got high hopes for this, you know. So we'll see. I'll certainly report back when I've finished it, so check in with me in about 3 years. No, but I, as I said, hopefully I'll finish this around about September, so August, September. So that's my reading project, or one of them, for 2019. So that's kind of it for today. As usual, I hope you're doing really well wherever you are. It's coming up to the end of 2019. Sorry, it's coming up for the end of 2018. We're about to go into 2019, and I love the feeling of a fresh start, a new year. It's a special time. I think it's a very special time, you know, it just allows you to wipe the slate clean and move forward with a fresh outlook, so that's pretty good. But anyway, I hope you're doing well wherever you are, and thanks for watching, and I hope I'll see you in the next one. So take care, bye for now.